The reflection in the elevator mirror revealed a man sculpted from precision and discipline. Leon Varela adjusted his silk tie with the kind of control that extended far beyond wardrobe. His dark eyes, sharp, sleepless, unrelenting, examined his own image the same way he dissected quarterly reports. "Mr. Varela, the board meeting starts in 5, came the voice of Claudia, his assistant of 13 years, through the intercom. "I'll be there in 2, he replied curtly, eyes still locked on his reflection. The elevator doors slid open to the 47th floor of Varela Holdings, a glass and steel fortress in the heart of Manhattan. Claudia was already waiting, briefcase in hand and concern written across her face. "There's been a change," she said, walking beside him. "The visit to Haven Ridge Orphan Home, it's been moved up. This afternoon." He stopped mid-stride. "Cancel it. We can't. Press is notified. The mayor's office is watching. After the Singapore incident, this outreach is non-negotiable." Leon inhaled slowly, jaw tightening. The Singapore incident. That's what the PR team had chosen to call it, a scandal involving one of their overseas suppliers. The kind of headline that didn't just bruise reputations, it broke balance sheets. 2 hours, he muttered. No more. The boardroom was an arena, and Leon moved through it like a tactician. Words were weapons. Charts, ammunition. Acquisitions, mergers, asset reallocation. He maneuvered each topic with clinical focus. But beneath the polished exterior, something felt off. A sliver of unrest he couldn't quite locate. At exactly 2 p.m., Leon's Bentley slipped out of the financial district and headed north. The glass towers gave way to brownstones, and the manicured avenues morphed into aging streets with weathered signs and peeling fences. The orphanage stood quiet, a 3-story Victorian with ivy clinging to its bricks and a fading wooden sign that read, Haven Ridge Orphan Home. An older woman with iron-gray hair waited on the steps, her stance as straight as a judge's. "Mr. Varela. I'm Eleanor Hart, director. Thank you for coming." Her handshake was firm. Her eyes studied him with a mix of courtesy and suspicion, like a woman who'd seen a lot of promises get broken. "We don't often have visitors like you," she added, leading him inside. "The children are excited." He barely heard her. The scent of disinfectant mixed with crayons and aging would brought with it something strange. Something he hadn't felt in years. Memory. Distant and unwanted. They stepped into the courtyard, and the sound of children laughing filled the air. Leon paused. Dozens of kids were playing chalk drawings on the ground, makeshift forts of blankets and chairs, squeals of delight echoing against the brick walls. Eleanor began to speak again, but a small voice cut through the noise. "I know you." Leon turned. A girl had stepped forward from the crowd. She was maybe 7. Chestnut curls tied into lopsided pigtails. A smudge of ink on the hem of her faded blue dress. But it was her eyes that held him, brilliant green, staring straight into his soul. "You're the man from Mommy's photo." Everything stopped. His breath caught. "What's your name?" he asked, the words quieter than he intended. "Clara Ivy Santiago." He staggered back half a step. "Santiago." The name hit him like a buried landmine. "That's impossible." But Clara only smiled, took his hand, and said, "Come on. I want to show you something." And for the first time in 2 decades, Leon Varela, the man who ruled empires, found himself following a child with crooked pigtails and eyes like his past, not knowing that everything was about to change. The office was small and smelled of old files and lemon-scented polish. Leon sat stiffly in a worn leather chair, fingers tapping the armrest in an uneven rhythm while Eleanor combed through a cabinet of folders. "Santiago, Santiago," she murmured, pushing her glasses higher on her nose. "Here, Clara Ivy Santiago." She arrived 3 months ago, after the passing of her mother, Lucia Santiago. Lucia. The name dropped into his chest like a stone into still water. And just like that, everything rippled, sunlight on ivy-covered brick, laughter between library shelves, whispered dreams beneath a sky full of stars. What was the cause of death?" he asked, barely managing the words. "Cancer." It advanced fast. According to the records, Lucia left Clara with a neighbor while she started treatment. But she didn't make it through. Leon closed his eyes. A knock broke the silence. Clara stood in the doorway, cradling something in both hands like a treasure. "I found it," she said brightly, stepping into the room. She walked over and gently placed an old photograph in his lap. Its edges were curled, the colors faded, but the image stopped his breath. He was in it. Younger. Smiling, with arms wrapped around a beautiful girl with dark hair and unmistakable green eyes. "She kept this like it was made of gold," Clara said softly. She said it was from the day she met real love. Leon stared at the photo like it might vanish. That face, his, didn't look like the man he'd become. That man still believed in promises. That man still knew how to dream. Mr. Varela? Eleanor asked cautiously. He didn't answer. Did you know her? She continued. He nodded once, slow and deliberate. But he wasn't in the room anymore. Not fully. Clara, he said at last, voice rough. Did your mom ever talk about me? All the time, she said, clutching her hands in front of her. She said you were someone really important. That one day, you'd be on TV. And that I had your eyes. Leon's gaze shifted back to hers, and for the first time, he noticed. The shape of the pupils. The quiet defiance. The light behind them. His. He reached for the photo. Would it be okay if I kept this for a while? He asked gently. I promise I'll bring it back. Clara held it tighter for a beat. Only if you really come back. The words nearly broke him. He dropped to one knee, so they were face to face. I'll come back tomorrow, he said, barely recognizing his own voice. And if you'd like, we can talk more about your mom. Her smile could have warmed concrete. Without hesitation, she threw her arms around him, a quick, fierce hug. And then she was gone, skipping out of the room like she hadn't just shattered the walls he'd built around his past. Alone again, Leon stared at the photo. At the version of himself who had once held the world in his arms and let it go. The empire he had built, the life he had constructed with brutal efficiency, it all felt smaller now. Something had just woken up inside him. And it wasn't going back to sleep. Leon sat in the back of his Bentley, the city blurring past the tinted windows as the photo rested in his lap. He stared at it in silence. Not just at Lucia's face, but at his own, youthful, open, unguarded. A version of himself he hadn't seen in years. That night, in the penthouse high above Manhattan, he didn't sleep. Instead, he sat at his desk surrounded by the cold luxury of a life built on sacrifice. His laptop glowed in the dark, tabs open across the screen of Lucia Santiago. Obituaries, medical records, teaching credentials, every detail he could find. She'd become a literature teacher. She'd never married. Never tried to contact him, at least not through any means that had reached him. Until now. At sunrise, Claudia's voice came over the intercom. Mr. Varela, the Ethics Commission is waiting for your 9 a.m. call. Cancel it, he said without hesitation. A pause. Sir, should I also cancel the investor roundtable? Especially that. Leon stood, the photo still clutched in his hand. He reached for his coat. And Claudia. I need you to find something for me. 15 minutes later, she entered his office holding a folder, thicker than usual. I found everything available on Clara Ivy Santiago, she said. There's also this. She held out a sealed envelope. A letter. Left by Lucia, with her attorney. It's addressed to you. Leon's hands trembled slightly as he took it. She tried calling in her final months, Claudia added quietly. But our call filters. She never got through, he finished, guilt crushing down like a wave. The envelope was soft at the edges. Familiar handwriting curved across it, still graceful despite time. His name. He opened it. Dear Leon. If you're reading this, it means I didn't reach you in time. Or maybe, knowing you, it means I had to leave this world before you could finally let your guard down. Our Clara has your eyes. Not just the color, but that same intensity that both captivated and scared me. She also has your heart, the one you spent so many years hiding behind briefcases and skyscrapers. I don't ask forgiveness for keeping her from you. We both made choices. That night in 2005, you chose your empire. I chose our daughter. But now, I'm asking something I never imagined I would. Take care of her. Not out of guilt. Not for appearances. But because she deserves to know the part of you the world never sees, the part that still believes in second chances. With love that never ended, Lucia. Leon sat in stunned silence, the letter shaking in his hands. His heart thudded in his chest. The photo on the desk blurred through tears he hadn't shed in years. He stood abruptly. Claudia, he called out, voice hoarse, get the legal department on the phone. For what exactly? He stared at the photo of Lucia, then at the green-eyed child etched into his memory. For an adoption process, he said. Today, the drive to Haven Ridge had never felt so long. Every red light, every turn, every slowing car in front of him, it all felt like the universe testing his resolve. But Leon didn't falter. Not this time. When he arrived, Eleanor Hart was already waiting at the door. Her expression was no longer cautious. It was personal. She's been asking for you all morning, she said, stepping aside to let him in. But before I take you to her, I need to say this, Mr. Varela. That girl has already lost more than most adults I've known, if you're not absolutely sure. She's my daughter, Leon interrupted. The words came out before he could second-guess them, and saying them aloud felt like cutting a wire inside himself, something permanent. Eleanor paused, then nodded. I thought so. Down the hallway, they turned a corner, and there she was. Clara was running toward him, her curls bouncing, a colorful drawing fluttering in her hands. You came back, she exclaimed, eyes shining. Leon dropped to one knee before she reached him. He saw it now, plain as day. The curve of her smile, the tilt of her head when she was curious, the way her brow furrowed like it carried tiny secrets. She wasn't just Lucia's daughter. She was his. Of course I came back, he said quietly. And I brought your photo. He held it out, but she didn't take it right away. She hesitated. How do you tell a child you're her father? He thought. How do you explain 20 years of silence? But Clara spoke first. Mom always said I had my father's eyes. Leon's throat tightened. You do, he whispered. You really do. Did you know about me? She asked softly. He shook his head. No, he said, truth breaking in every word. I didn't. But now I do. And if you'll let me, I'd like to be part of your life. For real. Clara didn't answer immediately. She just handed him the drawing she'd been holding. 3 stick figures. One woman with angel wings. One little girl with pigtails. One tall man in a suit. That's Mom. That's me. That's you, she explained. Family. The word hit him like a chord he didn't know he'd been waiting to hear. He didn't need a boardroom. He didn't need another deal. He just needed this. Leon wrapped his arms around Clara, and for the first time in his adult life, he didn't feel powerful. He felt something better. He felt home. That night, Leon stood alone in the center of his private gym on the top floor of his Manhattan triplex. For 15 years, this was how he started every day, 1 hour of precision and control before the world got its claws into him. But this morning, everything felt wrong. He stared into the wall-length mirror. The man looking back wore the same custom suit, had the same sharp jaw, the same perfect posture. But something in the eyes had shifted. A softness. A crack. His phone buzzed. A message from Eleanor. Clara has her school music recital at 2 p.m. She asked if you'd come. He stared at the message. At the exact same time, his calendar notification lit up, 2 p.m., International Investor Summit. Dozens of partners. Billions in play. His reputation on the line. He pressed the intercom. Claudia, he said. Yes, sir. I need you to reschedule my afternoon. A long pause. Sir, Mr. Blackwell is flying in from London just for this meeting. Tell him a family emergency came up, Leon replied calmly. Set a dinner instead. The word family still sounded foreign in his mouth. But it was no longer fiction. 2 hours later, he was sitting in the third row of a small school auditorium surrounded by proud parents in jeans and sweaters. His $3,000 suit looked absurd here, but for once, he didn't care. Clara walked onto the stage with her classmates, wearing a pale blue dress that looked hauntingly like Lucia's from their Harvard days. She glanced toward the crowd, anxious, and her eyes found his. He smiled. A barely there nod. And just like that, she started to sing. A simple, off-key version of Somewhere Over the Rainbow. But to him, it was everything. For a moment, he was back in college again. Lucia's voice echoing as she strummed a battered guitar. Music's not math, Leon, she had said. It's not supposed to make sense. It's supposed to make your heart feel like it's flying. Back then, he hadn't understood. Now he did. After the show, as children ran into their parents' arms, Clara approached him slowly. You really came, she said, like it was the rarest thing in the world. I told you I would. She shrugged. Most adults promise things, but they don't always mean them. He dropped to one knee again, holding her gaze. Well, I do. And I always will. Like your mom used to. His phone vibrated again, emergency call from the board of directors. He silenced it without a glance. How about we get ice cream? He asked. I know a place nearby. But, isn't it too cold? He smiled. It's never too cold for ice cream. Your mom used to say that. At the shop, Clara picked an outrageous swirl of chocolate and mint. Leon watched her laugh, get chocolate on her nose, and talk about school like it was the center of the universe. And then, out of nowhere, her tone changed. Some kids here have already been adopted, she said, stirring her spoon. They get new homes. New families. He leaned in. And what do you think about that? I think, she hesitated. I think it must be nice. Having someone who's really there. Always. Leon took a slow breath. Clara, I know we're just starting to get to know each other. But if you'd like, would you want to have a home with me? The silence that followed was heavy. Clara looked up, and for the first time, he saw fear in her eyes. Are you going to leave? She asked. Like my first dad did. It hit him like a freight train. Your first dad? Mom said he left before I was born. That his dreams were too big to include us. She lowered her eyes. I guess I wasn't important enough. Leon felt like the wind had been knocked out of him. He remembered the words he'd said to Lucia that last night at Harvard. I need to think about my future. I can't afford distractions. He looked at Clara. Sweetheart, he whispered. You are the most important thing that's ever happened to me. And I promise you, I will never, ever walk away from you. She studied his face, like she was reading his soul. Then she moved, crawled into his arms, hugged him like she'd waited a lifetime to do it. I want to, she whispered into his chest. I want to live with you. His phone kept vibrating in his pocket. He didn't check it, didn't even feel it. In that small ice cream shop, with his daughter clinging to him, Leon Varela, billionaire, empire builder, perfectionist, felt something he hadn't felt in 20 years. Whole. The following evening, the second floor of Leon's penthouse, usually reserved for solitude and status, had transformed. Bookshelves that once held first editions on finance now displayed something different, traces of a life forgotten. A worn-out teddy bear, a music box with chipped paint, a small pair of ballet slippers. In the center of it all sat Leon, surrounded by memories he never lived. An open box rested on the table beside him, items Eleanor had given him from Lucia's belongings. His fingers sifted through them slowly, faded movie tickets, handwritten notes, Polaroids from old-school festivals. Then his hand froze. A photograph. Lucia, visibly pregnant, smiling brightly at the camera. Her hands were on her belly. Her eyes were glowing. He didn't know this photo existed. Didn't know any of it had happened. The intercom crackled. Mr. Varela, Claudius said. The social worker has arrived. Leon stood up, smoothing his shirt, but making no effort to hide the emotions etched on his face. Send her up. Andrea Phillips entered with a professional smile and a thick leather folder tucked under her arm. She glanced around the massive library, her eyes sweeping over the immaculate design. Impressive, she commented, settling into the chair across from him. Though, I admit it makes me a little uneasy. Leon raised an eyebrow. How so? There are no signs of children. No books. No toys. Nothing that says a child could feel at home here. That can be changed. I've already started converting the top floor into a bedroom for Clara. Andrea nodded slowly, but kept her gaze locked on him. Mr. Varela, I need to be frank. This situation is unusual. A single man with no parenting experience discovers a biological daughter after 7 years and files for immediate adoption. The board will want to know, why now? Leon opened his mouth to respond, but something slid out from the box beside him. An envelope stamped Massachusetts General Hospital. Andrea noticed it before he could react. She reached for it, eyes widening. These are Lucia's medical records, she murmured. Pregnancy documentation from 2005. Her voice sharpened. Did you know she was pregnant? The silence was suffocating. Leon rose from his seat and turned to face the skyline outside. Below, the city glittered like a jewel, just as it had the night he left Lucia behind. No, he said finally. Not directly, but there were signs. I ignored them. He didn't turn around. She tried to tell me. I was packing for an internship on Wall Street. She asked me to stay, said she needed to talk. I told her it could wait, that I couldn't afford distractions. He exhaled, a breath laced with shame. I never came back. Andrea watched him carefully. He turned to face her. I've spent 20 years building something to prove I mattered. And in the process, I abandoned the one thing that truly did. Now I have the chance to fix it. To be her father. Not just in name, but in presence. Andrea reached into her folder. There's one more thing I have to show you, she said. It was found among Lucia's belongings at the hospital. She wrote it during her last days. Leon's heart slowed as he accepted the envelope. His name was written on the front in trembling ink. He unfolded the letter. My dear Clara, there are so many things I wanted to tell you about your father. Not the man he became, but the boy I knew. The one who lit up when he talked about changing the world. Who carried more kindness than he ever let himself admit. I didn't tell him about you, not out of spite, but because, back then, he wasn't ready. He needed time. And I wanted to protect you both from the pain of becoming someone's second priority. But now, if he's reading this, if he's standing beside you, then I believe he's found his way back. Sweetheart, look at him not as the man the world sees, but as the one I saw under library lights in autumn skies. Maybe, just maybe, you're what he needs to remember who he really is. With all my love, Mom. The paper trembled in his hands. Andrea said nothing. She just handed him a tissue. Mr. Varela, she said softly, as a social worker, I have to assess whether Clara will have a loving, stable home with you. Can you promise me that? Leon looked down at the letter again, then back at her. No, he said quietly. I can't promise perfection. I can't guarantee I won't mess up. But I can promise you this. From this day forward, every decision I make will have Clara at the center of it. Because she's not just a child. She's the second chance I didn't know I needed. Andrea gave him a long look. Then, finally, she smiled. Sometimes, she said, standing, the best parents are the ones who've made mistakes, but choose to do better. When she left, Leon remained seated. Outside, the lights of Manhattan sparkled against the night. But inside, in the silence of the penthouse library, something far more powerful was beginning to glow. The next morning, the headlines hit like a tidal wave. Billionaire Leon Varela discovers secret daughter in orphanage. A grainy, unauthorized photo of him and Clara at the ice cream shop splashed across news sites. He was mid-laugh. She had chocolate on her nose. The phones at Varela Holdings rang nonstop. Claudia tried to contain the fallout, but it was like plugging holes in a sinking ship. This is catastrophic, Maxwell, the company's legal chief, muttered, slamming down a stack of tabloid clippings. We're bleeding. Shares are down 10%. Shareholders are demanding answers. Leon didn't look up. He sat silently at the head of the conference table, scrolling through online comments on his tablet. He abandoned the mother. Now wants to play Daddy of the Year? PR stunt after the factory scandal. Disgusting how billionaires think love is something they can buy back. Leon, Maxwell barked, we need a containment plan. There's nothing to contain, Leon said flatly, finally meeting his eyes. Your image isn't worth my daughter's pain. Just then, Claudia entered. She looked shaken. Haven Ridge is on the line, she said. It's urgent. Eleanor's voice crackled through the speaker. Reporters swarmed the orphanage this morning. Clara saw the news. The other kids, some of them said horrible things. She's locked herself in her room. She won't speak to anyone. Leon stood up, already grabbing his coat. You can't just leave. Maxwell shouted. The board. To hell with the board, Leon snapped. To hell with the shares, and the investors, and every quarterly report. My daughter is suffering. He left the office without another word. The orphanage was surrounded when he arrived. Reporters screamed questions. Cameras flashed like lightning. Mr. Varela, are you adopting her for damage control? Did you really abandon Lucia Santiago 20 years ago? Is Clara just a publicity stunt? He climbed the orphanage steps, then stopped. He turned slowly to face the mob. You want a statement, he said. The noise fell silent. I made the worst mistake of my life 2 decades ago. I chose ambition over love. I left behind the only woman who ever saw me for who I was. I missed the chance to watch my daughter grow up. He glanced toward the windows, his voice steady. I'm not here to fix my image. I'm here because for the first time in my life, I found something worth more than everything I've built, my daughter. She doesn't need my empire. She needs my love. And she's going to have it. Inside, Eleanor met him with teary eyes. She heard everything, she said. She's upstairs. Leon climbed the staircase slowly, each step heavy with regret. He knocked. Clara, it's me. Silence. Then the door creaked open. She looked up at him, her eyes red. Was it true? What you said outside? He knelt, a level again. Every word. But, your company. Doesn't matter. Not like you do. She studied him with that soul-deep stare, the same one Lucia once had. Everyone says stuff, she said. But not everyone means it. I mean it, Clara, he whispered. I promise, no matter what the world says, I will always be your father. Not when it's convenient. Always. She threw her arms around him. Outside, cameras caught the moment. But inside, none of that existed. Only them. A week later, in court, Leon sat beside Clara as the judge reviewed the case. There were objections at first, a high-profile billionaire adopting a child he'd never raised. But then, the social worker spoke. And so did Clara's aunt, who tearfully withdrew her own custody petition after receiving a late-night phone call from Clara. And finally, Clara stood. When Mom was sick, she said clearly, she told me to be brave. And if I ever met my dad, to give him a chance. She looked at Leon. He's trying. He's not perfect. But he loves me. And I love him. The judge removed his glasses, wiping his eyes discreetly. I see no reason to deny this petition, he said. Clara Ivy Santiago is now legally adopted by Leon Varela. Case closed. The gavel struck. And Clara ran straight into Leon's arms. Do you think Mom saw that? She whispered. He looked up at the light pouring through the courtroom ceiling, bright, warm, golden like the dress she wore the night he first fell in love. I think she saw everything, he said. And I think she's smiling. Months later, they moved into a modest Victorian home in Beacon Hill. The penthouse was too cold, too empty. Clara helped decorate every room, blue and lavender walls, shelves full of books and toys. Her laughter filled the halls. One night, they opened an old trunk in the attic. Inside were remnants from Leon's childhood, a telescope, notebooks, a stuffed lion with one eye. Whose was this? Clara asked. Mine. From when I still believed stars held secrets. She smiled. Mom always said stars were people we loved, still watching over us. Together, they took the telescope out into the garden. Above them, the sky stretched wide and infinite. Make a wish, she whispered, spotting a shooting star. Leon didn't close his eyes. He didn't have to. His wish had already come true.